Hi again, and welcome to another Hangout. And this Hangout is quite interesting because the title of our Hangout is Wisdom or Knowledge, What You Should Aim For. And Sophie did a very nice research about this subject because she was just telling us that she got in love with the subject. And we never start with the definition, but this definition that Sophie arranged, I think it's nice to start with. So let's talk about knowledge. What you should aim. Knowledge is a noun that refers to the information, understanding, and skills that you gain through education or experience. It refers to hard facts and the data that can be available to anyone if he has the right resources. For example, you can have practical, medical, or scientific knowledge. You can also say that someone has a wide knowledge of, for example, taxation system. Wisdom, on the other hand, is a noun that refers to the ability to make sensible decisions and give good advice because of the experience and knowledge that you have. Someone may have all the knowledge about a subject, but may not have the wisdom to utilize this knowledge properly to be able to act in a sensible manner. That is why they say you can gain knowledge by educating yourself, but you can gain wisdom only by experience. And this is the starting point that I wanted to talk is, do you think it's possible to teach, to educate people in order to them to gain wisdom? Sophie, do you want to start?
No, yes, thank you. Well, when it comes to living and learning and doing, it's a way of acquiring both knowledge and wisdom. And I'm a firm believer that you develop wisdom in a way when you have conversations with people in interaction. And wisdom can be, it's like hard to say, I'm very wise and I know everything about myself, because we don't. We can say we have a lot of knowledge about ourselves, but just because we're emotionally involved in ourselves, it's like hard to say that we can use the wisdom in our own situation, in our own lives, quite often. But I do believe that you can definitely learn to be more wise by exploring and going out there, searching for knowledge, always interact. You know, in our lifespan, say we live average 80 years in Europe, the first 20 is very, very, very knowledge focused, and then we are continuing to evolve and we learn and we learn and we learn in different jobs, and then we almost feel like in society you're ready to retire when you reach a certain age, and many people stop learning, maybe between, well, around 50 to 60 years old. So it's like, I think that, you know, age and wisdom maybe not always connected. I do believe that, you know, we can definitely learn and teach other people what wisdom is and share it. And I'm not saying that everyone can be wise, but hopefully more people can use wisdom.
Peter, what do you think? Can wisdom be taught?
I think what probably can be taught is the process of getting wisdom rather than wisdom itself. I mean, for me, wisdom is about perspective and a broader understanding, and that can only be achieved by tapping into the perspectives of other people. I think knowledge on its own is just a particular perspective. So, for example, when I was at university, I studied psychology, but I also studied anthropology, and I came across the concept that you can't really understand another culture very easily because you're looking through the lens of your own culture. But the exercise of having to try and do that is probably a good way of gaining more wisdom, because you start to gain a different perspective and learn to see the world through different lenses.
That's. I would like to connect that because, in my view, I cannot train somebody to be wise. I cannot educate somebody to be wise, but I can create experiences that might help people to be wise. What I mean is, for instance, as a parent, let's say, delegated some part of the knowledge to be taught on school. But as a parent, my work is to make my kids wiser, and I cannot do that in a traditional way, because I think you gain wisdom in a chaotic process. A bit like knowledge, actually, but more. I think even more chaotic. You win a wisdom by interaction with situations, experiences, and people.
Yeah, choices.
And when you do this, and it's very important that every time you do those choices, like Sophie was saying, you reflect about the choices that you made, not in a, let's say, self-criticizing yourself all the time, but trying to understand why you did that and what were the results, and not all, and also not fall into the mistake that every other choice that you didn't make or that you could have made would create a better reality, because that's not true also. So it is very interesting when you, for instance, as a parent, create experiences for your kids where they have to challenge themselves, and they have to do those choices, and they have to be responsible for those choices. So, for instance, in the Middle Ages, there was somebody said like this, that I thought that it's so interesting, that traveling around the world is the equivalent to go to university. And that is connects with what Peter said about looking through the eyes of other cultures and everything. It depends also on the way you travel, because nowadays a lot of people travel around the world, but that doesn't mean that they are getting wiser. I think that sometimes they are even becoming more stupid, because when you go from resort to resort, independently of the continent or the country, basically the world is always the same. So being in a resort in, let's say, in Tunisia, and then being in a resort in Jamaica, and then being in a resort in Maldives, it's the same world. You will find the same mojito.
Maybe you're not like interacting in society in that way, and you're traveling in that way. So
you are really losing an opportunity. In order to have that interaction, you have to really dive into the culture as much as possible. Of course, that depends on the time and the resource that you have, but diving in that, you will become more wise. And that's why in the Middle Age was like this, because there were no resorts. You had to save yourself. Traveling was a really difficult thing in the Middle Ages. It wasn't. It was a hazard activity. It was like bungee jumping or something like that nowadays, or even worse, because there was no rope, that security rope that can save you. And I would like to make like a kind of challenge. Nowadays, I see a lot of people that say explaining what is their business. They say, "I'm a life coach," and sometimes I see some of these life coaches with 20 or 30 years old,
Mm.
Do you believe in life coaches with 20 or 30 years old?
Can I answer that first?
Yes, yes, please.
Because I have had big problems with too many coaches around me. Some of them are lovely, some of them are sometimes a bit much. But I believe it's who you are, because if you're a teenager and you're going to make choices that are very important for the next few years in your future, I think you're going to listen to someone who's younger. You know, quite many young people would listen to someone who maybe just done that journey currently, because the society has changed a lot. So if you listen to someone who's like 45, who have more experience, and they talk about that journey, what you should do just after university, they might not really be up to date about reality. And I believe, like, if you make a choice in your own life that you would like to be coached and open and sort of have an open spirit, you can be coached and things will work really well for you. And then I do believe that you can learn from anyone, but we also have like different demographic problems, I think, that comes up depending on where you live and who you are and what kind of experience you have.
Peter.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. Coming back to the earlier point, I think wisdom comes from gaining of different perspectives. So I don't think we can say that a 55-year-old coach is any better than a 25-year-old coach. I think it is that they bring different perspectives to things. A coach I think it's useful to make the distinction between a coach and a mentor. So a mentor is a person who has been through a lot of experiences and can share their own experiences with someone who might be going through the same kind of experiences. You're entering into marriage for the first time. It's useful to speak to someone who may have done that, or you're being promoted to the board of a company, and you're somebody who's been on that journey before is a good mentor because they know the kind of things you're going to have to deal with. Whereas a coach, there's a saying, a coach has the right, a mentor has the right answers, and a coach has the right questions. You could be a 25-year-old coach who asks really good questions that makes the individual think and look at things from different angles. And in fact, there's value in having different perspectives. So, some companies have upward coaching programs where senior people are being coached or mentored by younger people who see the world differently. And that avoids the concept of groupthink. Something that's been in the media or is in the media right now is the scandal of Volkswagen cheating on the emission tests in the United States. Now that has had a huge impact across the entire car industry. The share prices are dropping of all the car manufacturers because trust has been lost in the industry. Now somebody somewhere was making a decision to install a piece of software that knew when the car was being tested, and it was giving false information which enabled Volkswagen to pass the strict emission tests in California. Now that very, very clever, knowledgeable person or group of people that put that together were not showing a lot of wisdom, because if Volkswagen could have turned back the clock, they would never have done that. That is going to cost them millions or probably billions of dollars. They're talking about lawsuits, certainly brand reputation. I mean, it was a stupid, stupid thing to do. However, within the power structures and the demand to make money and just get the results and get the profits up this quarter or this year, it seemed like a smart thing to do. But wisdom is about having that broader perspective where you say, if someone was coaching the person making that decision, and they could be 20 years old, they could say to them, what would happen if that information got out to the world? What would be the impact, do you think, on your company, on the share price, on the reputation? And that simple question and the ability to step back from the demand just to make more money and do whatever it takes would get someone to reflect and say, it may be not worth the risk. Maybe we need to do it differently. So, you know, wisdom is that broader perspective. It's almost like wisdom is more likely to exist when we all join together and talk together than if one of us just thinks we know all the answers.
But wisdom is that thing. It's the thing with being both good for the individual and society. It's like an including way of thinking.
You know, I have been thinking about a lot of this question about age and being the life coach. Is it possible? And the interesting thing is that my conclusion is that it doesn't depend on age. I can have somebody that is not wise at all because it's has no experience, has no of those interactions, and can be old person, 70 or 80 years old, and it's not wise at all because it didn't learn anything about it.
Yeah.
And also on the other side, I can have a very young person that had a very, very interesting life and that had a lot of interactions, a lot of experience, maybe had some extreme experiences, and has a lot of wisdom because of those experiences. So what I have a problem is with some life coaches that think that their ability to be life coach comes from a kind of certification or a coaching course that they attended and they did all the steps, and they are in that stage mixing knowledge and wisdom, because you really can only be a good life coach if you have a good doses of wisdom. And that takes me to the next question. Can you be conscious about your wisdom? Can you arrive to a certain point of your life and say, I'm a wise guy?
There's a great saying that the beginning of wisdom is realizing how much you don't know. In fact, in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu said, wise men don't need to prove their point, and men who need to prove their point aren't wise. So there's this kind of relaxed, bigger perspective on life, I think, is more likely to be wisdom. And that I don't know that you can ever say, I am wise. You might be able to say, I'm wiser than I was a year ago because of certain experiences. But the minute you think you know it all, the minute you think you are wise, is the minute that you're not wise.
But it also depends on, because like if you have lots of different choices, what you're going to do, what's the options, and you discuss it with someone, they might give you really wise advice on that area, but they might not be so wise when it comes to other things.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's... what was the question again? Can you remind me?
Can you be conscious that you are wise?
Yeah, well, I think wisdom sometimes is just like a bubble that comes up. Suddenly you knew that you knew lots of different things and you didn't know before. And that advice and that thought to the other people you were around might be the right one that they need then. So you were very wise then. But to always go around and think that you're wise, I think you will be a horrible person to hang out with. I'm the wisest. I know everything. Oh, God.
If you define yourself as wise, then by definition you're not wise, I would say. Because wisdom is about that ongoing curiosity and openness to learning.
But I think it's also, wisdom comes from being humble to
yes,
lots of different problems and things, and I often listen to interviews, radio interviews with people who are experts in different areas, and they discuss it. And often it's like philosophy and religion and sort of those quite tensions, big topics that are very complex to narrow down. And they often say, yes, I definitely understand that, and here's also this possibility and this possibility and that possibility. And I like that. I like to listen to that kind of discussion. I like to discuss things from that perspective as well, that there are the options, and that I like to talk to people who have this kind of open spirit. And then you feel like you're in a giving and learning conversation by just being there. And that, for me, that is part of wisdom sharing and learning about the different complexities that life brings with it.
I think maybe at some point you can be conscious about you being wise, because people turn to you because you are wise. And then if you start seeing that movement of people turning to you, maybe you think, well, maybe I know something. Maybe I can give something to the world.
That's still a danger, Philip. I think that you become arrogant and you think that because people are coming to you for advice, that you are wise. So I think it's a trap. I think the minute you describe yourself as wise is the minute you're not wise. There's a paradox.
Yeah, it is. It is a paradox, because at that point you start thinking that you don't need to hear anybody else because you are the wise guy.
Yeah, in medieval times, the king would have a jester, the fool, who would make people laugh and say things that no one else was allowed to say. So it was almost like a recognition that this all-powerful monarch actually wasn't perfect and didn't know everything, and the jester would bring in a different perspective once again to the court. And I sometimes say, I think, a modern day coach is almost like the court jester. You're in the presence of very powerful people who everybody just follows and agrees with because that's the right thing to do, or they assume that the chief executive is all knowing and therefore all wise and all powerful. And the role of someone like a coach can be to question some of their decisions, question the wisdom of what they're doing. And, the executives at Volkswagen probably could have done with a little bit more of that in recent times.
Yeah, it feels like he's probably been quite isolated if he didn't understand that someone was cheating with something that important.
Well, that's always a problem too, but there would be somewhere in the power structure. I mean, I sometimes feel sorry for a chief executive who loses his or her job because someone further down has made a decision. And the chief executive might say, we need to maximize profits, we need to get sales up, and as that moves down through the hierarchy, it turns into, we'll do whatever it takes. The chief executive never said that, but people think that that's what they have to do to maintain their job. But then I guess if you're the head of a company, you're ultimately responsible for the culture of the company, and if it's a culture of fear and power and all of those things, then it's inevitable that things will go wrong.
And before I put the next question, if there are questions from the audience, they are more than welcome. So please put it, because we will be delighted to answer. This is another difficult question. Can we all be wise?
What, in other words, can all of us be wise?
Yes.
Not
only the three of us. Everybody.
Well, it was interesting because that article that Sophie showed us made the point that it isn't possible, because wisdom is being able to step outside the current society and look at things from a different perspective. So I've never come across that concept before. I was working on the assumption that each of us can become wise or move towards wisdom. And I still maintain that. I think it is a journey as much as anything, and just growing and understanding and different perspectives. I'm not sure you ever quite get to the any final destination with that. So is it a zero-sum game, I guess, is the other question. If somebody, does somebody have to be stupid for somebody else to be wise, or can all of us be wise individually? I don't know. What do you think, Sophie?
Well, I've been thinking quite a lot about this. I did a talk like a month ago, and I mentioned that being more accepting to people who are different is a power, and wise people, if you would have been the wise person in Volkswagen, you would have been seen as someone that is the plague. Sorry, don't come up here and talk about this with us now. We have other things to do. But I do believe, what wisdom is about being accepting, being accepted in that part of the community that you are, and that you're able to sort of explore that, and that if everybody were the same, it would have been a bit strange, wouldn't it? It's like, I do believe wisdom it comes in different forms, doesn't it? Like, you can be wise in certain areas and then have very little knowledge and wisdom in other areas. So I do believe that everybody can somehow achieve wisdom, and often, like, we have referred to philosophers when it comes to wisdom and what it means and what is this and what is that. And maybe like in the modern society, it would be the people who are questioning what's going on. They can be seen as the wise people. But at the same time, I was showing a picture of Albert Einstein in a presentation I did, and I asked, do you think this person was a bit weird? People were like, yeah. And would you accept that someone in your office were behaving like he probably did? People were like, maybe not. So how are we accepting people who are a little bit different, who are maybe super duper passionate, who are thinking a lot? They are not the best administrators in the world. Often we are like giving people praise because, they're always so quick at replying on emails, but that's just sending a message. And they are always so nice and polite. And the thing is, maybe they're just faking it. They're never honest. I don't know, but like, how are we going to how do you form a culture that is learning, always learning, doing new things, expanding your thinking, humble, and trying to fit into the society where they work and where they are? And I think that's the way you sort of achieve better group wisdom. And individuals, I think it's a choice as well, if you would like to expand your thinking about the world. And like, the ultimate sort of way to balance is to be a good thinker who's critical, and also being a person who can relax and maybe not overthink it all the time, because if you overthink it, you become depressed.
Mm-hmm.
You got nothing too much, and like, now to stop.
About emotions also, that are very important when we are talking about wisdom.
Yeah.
Is it possible to connect knowledge to IQ as we can connect wisdom to EQ, to emotional intelligence? Can we connect those? Can we say that a person that is wisdom has more emotional intelligence and not necessarily a higher IQ, and the person that is more knowledgeable has a higher IQ and might not have that emotional intelligence? I'm connecting with definition about how we can use the knowledge, because we can have the knowledge, but we are not sensible to and to understand that there is a timing to use the knowledge.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's a funny saying, knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, I do believe that, as human beings, we are collaborating, we're working together, and if you have better emotional intelligence, you're more likely to be a pleasant person to work with than if you're just very smart, or think you're very smart or wise.
I have a last question because I think this is actually a question, a very important one when we are thinking about human resources of talent development inside organizations, etc.
Mm.
And it connects with the job market of the future. One of the things that we have seen as a trend from before was that the older you get, the closer to the exit door you get. So you will sometimes you will be retired before time. Sometimes people are waiting for the hour and day to get rid of you. But demographics is changing a lot. So you will have older people, and at the same time, social security benefits cannot continue exactly like they are because of those demographics. So at the same time, companies are getting rid of people because, as Sophie said, people tend to stop their learning path around 50, at the most 60, and because they are waiting for that retirement. Um, how do you think wisdom and knowledge might affect the job market of the future?
Mm. Maybe Peter wants to start?
What was that?
How wisdom and knowledge can affect the job market of the future?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think a lot of the problems we're seeing in the world today are from human beings being extremely clever, but perhaps lacking wisdom and lacking that broader perspective of the impact of what they do. So I think the workplace of the future will be, a diverse one, which brings in the perspective of the older people and the perspective of the younger people who will question the direction. As we're seeing today, I mean, there's a new generation coming through who question a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the values that, for example, the baby boomers have brought to the world of business and politics and so on. And I think that's a healthy thing. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of value that older people can bring also. So the ultimate is to have the diversity and to celebrate that, and to, the respect that you need between people, because I think wisdom is more likely to come from a diverse group of people who respect each other and want to work together to the common good.
Sophie,
Yeah.
any
Yeah,
thought about
I
this?
think, if I'm looking at, if we look at the next 10 years, what's going to happen in the world, we're going to have much more information, we're going to be much more connected. At the moment, 43% of the world is connected on mobile devices and computers. We're going to have more of these connectivities, and more knowledge is going to flow throughout the world all the time. And I think people are going to question things more often because we have the knowledge. And I do believe, as a leader, it's going to be hard to be that kind of leader who say that this is how things are, because you're going to have more and more people question what's going on. And I also do believe that the UN is setting up new sustainability goals that's going to be released now, going to be announced in the next week, I think. They're connected with the Millennium Goals that have been around for quite many years now. But I think that since we are more we live in a more transparency, we appreciate honesty, wisdom is based on being open to change and learning. It feels to me that if you are from the younger generation, you have an advantage there. They have an advantage, and I don't say that people in other generations that are a little bit older don't have the same advantage, because it can be very personal, individual. But as a group, I think they are ahead in many different ways. Yeah.
They're ahead in certain ways and behind in other ways. I think
Yeah.
there's a perspective that older people have because they've lived more of life. It doesn't mean they have all the answers. I think it's good that young people come in with questions and question the way things are being done. I think that's really healthy. But to think, that you have all the answers when you're 20 years old would be a little bit naive.
Yeah, I agree. I understand. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's very interesting, like the way that knowledge is flowing and how much exchange that's going on. And I read a study about children and how their how could you say, their smartness, their knowledge has developed. So younger kids, they have much more knowledge than 20 and 30 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how they are evolving and learning and using that knowledge in the future.
I have some, maybe they sound a little bit crazy thoughts about this question. First of all, our generation, the three of us that are here, will have some kind of different concerns when we will be 80. Meaning that you can have this situation, you can be unemployed, and that is your concern at 80. You are unemployed and you are looking for a new job. And this changes everything because we will face this kind of vision, and still I don't see many people talking about this kind of possibilities because they assume, okay, at 80 you are retired. But in terms of lifespan, it's being bigger and bigger. So being unemployed at 80 will be the equivalent of being unemployed at 50 in the 50s. So it's not. It's quite normal, not a thing that is some exception. So you have to also, as an older person, change the way you market yourself, because I think that many times it's yourself that creates limitations. I know a lot of people nowadays that they are 80 and they are working. Actually, we have a record, a world record, that the oldest movie director in the world and well known in Europe was a Portuguese, Manuel de Oliveira. He was directing movies at 103 years old. 103 years old, he was directing movies. And he was happy with, he died recently, and he was very happy with his work. And I'm not saying that we will have to work until 100, but we have to market ourselves in a different way. We cannot say, as previous generations, things like, well, now I'm not able to learn new stuff, I'm not able to adapt because I'm an old person, blah, 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 blah. That will be taking ourselves out of the wagon and say, and then complaining that we are not on the train. It is a different world. Things will evolve every time. In order to be connected with the new generations, you have to understand what they are going through. You have to experience some of the things that they are doing. It's the only way, because change will be faster and faster. And when you stop, when you think, okay, it's enough for me, you are entering a dead end. You are really entering a dead end, a deadline that will take you nowhere. So if you market yourself like, okay, I've done, I'm only waiting for retirement, that will be a wrong way, because in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, that would be normal, social acceptable, because it was not expected that you would live much more. So nowadays, it can be the reverse. You can be seen as a burden to society because you are not willing to be a useful member for society. And that is the point that I think wisdom can help. Because if you look back to all the interactions, to all the experiences, and create with that your own wisdom, and like Peter said, not be thinking, well, I'm old, I'm wisdom, I'm wise. No, no, no. You shouldn't do that. You should think that it's always in construction. You are always in construction. Until the day you die, you are always in construction. You can construct yourself again and again. So I think that we as a generation, as we get older and older, we should market ourselves and share our knowledge and wisdom with others in order to be recognized and not say, okay, I'm a wise guy. Maybe we should continue our hangouts or other technology until we are 80 or 90.
I had that vision earlier. I thought I can see the three of us sitting here in 20 or 30 years.
And we can be commenting. Remember what we said? We were so wrong. So I think this is the challenge of our generation, because baby boomers are more or less done in terms of generation, but ours, X generation, is the first one that has to really not stop learning, not stop evolving, not stop being in contact, not stop in creating new experiences in order to gain wisdom. That's my view.
I'm flattered that you refer to me as us when I am a baby boomer, so it would be nice to think that I'm not done, like what you just said.
No, I refer as you as an X, actually. you have.
I'm an honorary X.
You're honorary X, because many times we are honorary of another generation, because the way we live is not of our generation.
Yeah, that's right.
So, guys, any final thought, any pearl of wisdom from your side to finish off our magnificent hangout? Because I always like our hangouts, because again, I think I gain some wisdom in talking with you guys. It's my wisdom treatment. It's my wisdom spa. Is talking with you guys.
Well, that's good. We are the spa for the brain. No, I don't think I have any final thought. I think it's a very interesting topic, which we should definitely discuss it more, what wisdom is, so we don't confuse it that often. It's a concept that's quite complex. More discussions is needed about wisdom and knowledge and where it fits in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so thank you very much once again, Sophie and Peter, for your sharing, for the time that you give, not only to me but to our audience, to talk about this. I was thinking during this hangout that our hangouts look like those radio shows that you go on the car and you are listening and you are thinking, okay, this is an interesting conversation, but the fun thing is that I'm in it. So this is much more fun. So guys, once again, thank you very much for your patience, for your time, and we will talk again, of course. So see you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.